Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. Okay, this is going to be a fun one. Two of my favorite people, Allie, I have to say you.
Yeah.
But we have Coach Stacy Johnson on. We go way back. Stacy actually goes way, way back with my wife, Stacy, back to their high school glory days of playing athletics. Stacy, you've coached softball 25 plus years, if I'm correct, right?
This will be 28.
No way. Wow. And all at the same school. You
started when I was 10 years old.
Yeah. You are a local legend. But I mean that. You'll never say that, but you do so good with the girls, not just record, but all things. I know a lot about you, and I hope our guests get to hear more about it. But let's just start. We're not going to talk about any of the accolades because I know you'd probably throw up on the screen if I start listing all the things you've accomplished. Right? Out of like that.
Not necessary.
That's not why you do it. That's not why you do it.
Not at all.
And people can Google that and look that up. But talk about, you played multiple sports in high school, but go back and talk about all the sports you played and then why you thought softball was the one you wanted to stick with for so
long. That's a tough one. Growing up, start off with the hard one. Thanks, Paul. And before we get started, thanks to both of you for asking me to be a part of this. Like you said, I go way back with your family. I remember Miss Allie running around my office, poking at her sister and kicking her sister and running away when she was a little one. So,
right.
It's pretty cool to see it all come full circle. So I appreciate the opportunity. And when you said, we want to talk about softball, you had me at softball. So yeah, growing up, I played the soccer, I played basketball, I played softball, and anyone that probably has crossed paths with me would probably, one of the words they'd use to describe me is I'm uber competitive. I don't care if it's cards or tiddlywinks or whatever, getting the mail out of the mailbox first. I'm a super, super competitive person. And I think as I got older, I realized playing sports that softball, I pitched, and I felt like I had more control of the outcome in that role as a pitcher. And I think that's why, obviously they're all team sports, but as a pitcher, I felt like I could be more of a leader, and the competitive part of me. In basketball, you don't take every single shot. Well, in softball, every single play starts with you letting go of the ball. And I think that's kind of what attracted it to me. That sport was, I controlled more than I did in the other sports, and I don't mean in a controlling way, but I could help my team and control the outcome more. And I guess I kind of learned, for some odd reason, like pressure situations didn't bother me, and I kind of liked that. It goes back to the competitiveness that, put me out there, I'll do it. I'm not afraid. And so I just kind of fell in love with the sport, and then that's what I ended up playing in college, and here I am 28 years later.
Where did you play in college? I know the answer. I want you to say it though.
So I started out at Corning Community College. I actually did play basketball at Corning as well, and softball. And then when I graduated from Corning, I transferred to Ithaca College and played for NFCA Hall of Fame coach Deb Palazzi. And that's where I ended my career.
And did you start working at Corning Community College right after that?
No, actually, I taught physical education, elementary physical education in the Elmira City School District for a year.
No way, you were the little ones, huh?
It was fun. They're fun. But I did come home one day and I was exhausted at 3:30, and I'm like, I don't know how much longer I can. play hop, skip, gallop, and jump and imagination games. And, it was fun, but
Yeah.
it was exhausting. And Ernie Danforth, who was a longtime professor at Corning Community College, he was my women's basketball coach there. He called me and said, because I coached women's basketball, varsity basketball at Southside High School. And he called me and said, Stacy, I'm retiring from basketball. What do you think about taking this position? So I actually went to Corning. I quit my full-time job in Elmira. Everyone in my life told me what a moron I was for losing benefits and a full-time job. And again, there was just something about it. And I think that when I went to Corning, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do academically for a major. I honestly, at that point in my life, sports was more important to me than school was. And I just ended up there. And Ernie was one of the people that made a difference and an impact in my life and helped me get direction. So when he called me, I was like, maybe I could try to be somebody to somebody's life like Ernie was to mine. And so I quit my job and I went there and followed my heart. Didn't follow my bank account. I followed my heart, and it all worked out because I'm there 28 years later. So it was the best decision I ever made.
So you started by coaching basketball there?
I coached basketball and I worked part-time in the athletic department, lining the fields and doing the laundry and packing the uniforms and all the terrible jobs that nobody wanted to do. So that's what I did. Left a full-time job with benefits and worked part-time.
You know,
So
I think that's something that's really important though, is I think more people need to do what they love because, you see people with jobs every day and you ask, oh, how's your day going? And they give you the sarcastic, oh, living the dream. Like, I never want to get to that point, right? Like, that's kind of the one thing when you get to your adult life that you can choose, right? You go to college and you want to have a career and a life that brings you joy. So kudos to you for doing that. I think that's a really good lesson. And I think too, and the coaches I've had growing up, it makes such a difference when you can just tell that they love what they do because it trickles down to their whole program, their whole team. And I think that's something that's just really special too.
Well, thank you. And the neat part is softball is not softball is a stipend position. It's an adjunct position at the college. I'm the assistant dean of student services, so I have an administrative job at the college, and I do softball extra on the side, like a teacher does in high school. So that's the best. Not that I mean I love my job,
Yeah.
but that's the best part of my day is when I get to go take my dress or my skirt off in the coach's locker room and put my shorts and my visor on or my hat and go outside to the field and grab my phone, go bat. That's what I look forward to every day. So I truly, it has nothing to do with my career. I could walk away from that and still have my full-time job, but it's something that I do because I love to do.
Do you miss playing? I mean, you haven't played for a few years, but do you miss playing?
A few years. They still used a weight softball when I played. Haley, you have no idea what that is. Um, you know, I I miss the competitive part. But when I get out of the bed, when I get out of bed in the morning, or I hit too many fly balls and ground balls, I'm like, yeah, I could never. Too much tossing, too much front toss. I'm like, I don't know how my arm went all the way around all those years.
Yeah.
You miss it. Of course, I miss it, and I think that's part of the reason I still coach because that's my connection to the game.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I started off this story by saying how I was attracted to pitching because I felt like I had more control. And as a coach, I've learned over the years that I don't have a lot of control.
Nope.
And my time is practice time, and I can do everything I can do to prepare my team for the competition. But when it comes down to brass tacks, it's game time. It's them. It's not me. It's them.
Even game time decisions, like you think you have all these choices you make as a coach, at the end of the day, their instinct and competitive spirit and training has to take over. There's not
100%.
and the reason I say that, I think some coaches really feel like the whole outcome's dictated by their choices. And I know you don't feel that way. That's why I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely not. And people talk about wins, number of wins, and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I coached those games. I didn't win those games. I prepared my team to have the best opportunity they could to win, but I didn't hit. I haven't hit one RBI. I haven't struck out one batter. I haven't made one diving catch. I've probably maybe fallen off my bucket a few times. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I don't do those things game time. Now, have there been times where we've taken a chance and I've called a squeeze and we've won a tight game? Yeah. I'll once in a while I can help impact the game, but I don't win games. I don't win games. Coaches don't win games.
So I guess pivoting a little bit, so being a college coach, what are some things that you feel like are most important, forming that team that you can trust, that you feel like is gonna put your best foot forward out there? Because like you said, I think trust is a huge thing, right? Because ultimately you do have no impact on, the game itself when it's happening. So being able to trust your athletes and say, I'm gonna invest my time into coaching these girls and they're gonna put their best foot forward and just, have that good group of people.
I think the biggest trust that you have to put in them first, and it starts in the recruiting process, is you have to trust they're good people and they do things the right way. Because you can be the best ball club. I mean, you've played college ball, Paul. You've been around enough teams. You can be the greatest players in the world, but if you're not good people and don't do the right things, it's not going to work. And give me a quote that I always think of is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're late to class, you're gonna be late to practice. Mm-hmm. If you're late to team meetings, you're falling behind. If you're sarcastic with people or you're talking behind people's back, you're not a trusted teammate in the dugout, and we can't depend on you. And I just think that that's the first thing, is I have to trust when there's a conflict or something, an issue in the dorms or between the team and the locker room, that I have to trust them that when I'm not there, that they're going to handle it the right way. And they're going to remember that, no, we're a family and we have to trust each other. So I think that part, that development of being just a good person and a good teammate and doing the right things, you have to cover that as a coach way before you get to the softball stuff.
Yeah. That's
my
very
opinion.
true. That's actually funny because that's one of our favorite quotes too. So I'm glad that you said that. We talk about it all the time. And I think one that is popular for athletics, I don't want to say popular, but you see sometimes, is kids thinking they can turn their work ethic on and off in different aspects of their life. So, right, you can't not care about anything and then step foot on the field or the court and just turn it on. Like, I don't believe that that's an efficient way to go about things and not one that's going to help you reach your full potential. So I think I'm curious, in your perspective, if that's something you've seen at all too.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like, and students do think that, young adults do think that nowadays, that, well, what's the big deal if I was late turning in my paper? What's the big deal if I was late to class? It is a big deal, because how do I know you're not going to be late to the game? Your teammates, if you were supposed to be here to help set up, if it was your shift that day to get the nets set up, the bow nets, and set up for the equipment for practice and the stations, and you didn't show up, you let everybody down. Now we can't trust you to take care of what's important for the team. So yeah, I mean, that's, if people think that, well, when it's game time, I don't, you shouldn't be a game time player. You should be a practice player who's prepared for game day. Because again, you don't turn it on. If you do it every day in practice and you work at that game day level and effort at practice, it's just second nature in a game. Games are easy. Practice should be harder than a game.
Yeah, agree.
When you are recruiting good people, do you put a lot of stock in their support, family, friends?
Absolutely. I'm sure you've heard it and other people have heard it, but you don't just recruit a player, you recruit their family. And so I don't know how your kids got recruited. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Apparently they didn't do their due diligence.
No, I was never allowed.
Much respect to the Richmonds. I'm just kidding, to whoever's listening. That's so we're comfortable with each other. I can be sarcastic. Yeah. No, I don't mean. But it's just that, if a kid comes for a recruit visit and all mom and dad want to ask about, well, how many games do we play and how much playing time is my kid going to get? You're not looking for the right reasons. And I don't know if this is going to work for you, because I don't promise anybody that. I promise playing time. You have to earn playing time. And I just think that the way that, again, going back to the good person, like, I've sat at events and whose parents are whose, because they, we all cheer louder when our kid is up. And that's the only name we yell out constantly. And so you pick up on those cues, and then you hear people in the stands talking about somebody else or blaming the coach because their kid's not playing. Well, yeah, I don't have to have a, magic ball, crystal ball to know that that's exactly what you're going to do in my bleachers next year to me and to the other kids on my team. So, and a lot of times they're learned behaviors. So your kid's probably in the dugout doing the same thing. And that's just not something that's conducive to a positive team environment. So yeah, you do look at those other things.
I think it's hard. We were talking a little bit before the episode started about the expectations kids have in high school and travel based on stats and, media coverage they get, which is all fantastic stuff. But I think people confuse the process of actually showing up, doing the right things, being good people, going to work every day with an outcome. All right, well, I work this hard, so I should start every game. Well, that's might not be how it works this year. Might not be your turn. Like, I don't think the process has a timeline or a finish line. The process means if you do all the right things, you'll be rewarded at some point. And it may not be on your college softball team, but all those habits you learn is going to reward you when you start your company or when you coach or when you do said things. And I think people get too caught up in the outcome, thinking they work hard. And they probably do work hard. We're not going to debate that.
And I think it's important. That's why you have to love the process too, because I think kids get in trouble when they say, well, I worked hard, I deserve this. You don't deserve anything, which is tough to hear. But if you truly love the process, it's like, okay, maybe I didn't reach the end goal that I wanted, but in my pursuit to get there, I'm better off than I was. So having the perspective to see that too, I think is really important instead of getting in the mind trap of, well, I did the bare minimum, I deserve this. I worked hard, I deserve this. I think is tough too.
Well, and Allie, that's a great point. And I think that goes back to the concept of young people now are in the world of instant gratification. Mm-hmm. I worked hard, so I should get a reward for it immediately. Who wants to sit the bench their freshman year and work hard to get a chance their sophomore year? I want to play right now. And then also the concept of everything is handed to me. Like, I go to work, so I deserve a paycheck. Well, you don't just go to work and sit in a chair. You actually need to take some pride in what you're doing, and you need to actually have some production. And you don't, and I think that's early conversations and how we prepare our student athletes mentally is you're not working hard every day to get playing time. You're working hard every day to be a better version of you than you were yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's about you reaching your potential. And the same, you can roll that over into game day. I don't care what the score is. Let's win every inning. I don't care. Yeah, we were better than them today on the scoreboard, but we also should have been 20 times better than them talent-wise, and the way that we played that day. So compare you to you, not to everybody else around you and your competition. And it's that striving to be the best me I can be every day, or be a better me today than I was yesterday. And I think that's what we lose sight of. It's almost like the why. Yeah. And what's your why? I didn't show up to practice and work hard so I can get a starting spot. I worked hard because I want to be better. And possibly that outcome is more playing time. Mm-hmm. But if it's not, that's okay. I'm learning work ethic. And then, like you said, Paul, it's going to be, I look at my being around 27 years and having hundreds of players who come to my program. Some of my most successful kids didn't play a lot. I can't, I'm not going to do a scientific research study on it, but it's coincidence. I don't know, but I've thought about that before. And I'm like, gosh, this kid is now going to med school, and this young lady's a lawyer. And I'm like, yeah, they were a great teammate, and they worked hard every day. They didn't get as many innings or at bats as they wanted, but those are some of my more successful kids.
And I almost think
I got to interrupt. I could see that as a recruiting tool. Hey, come to CCC. You're not going to play, but you'll have a great future.
Yeah, absolutely. You could buy me and sell me later on. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, I know. And I think it's because when you go through that struggle of adversity, when you go through it later on in life, because I don't know if people know this, when you stop playing softball, you still have adversity in your life. But it doesn't scare you anymore because you've seen that you've gotten through it. You know you're going to be better off, and you know that you've put in the work to get to the person that you are. So I think it kind of gives you that approach of like, oh, well, on to the next, right? If something doesn't go your way, and you just keep climbing and moving forward.
And Allie, that's a great point, because that goes back to the what we talked about in the beginning before we started recording here, that athletics is about life lessons and preparing you for life. It's not just about preparing you for the game, it's about preparing you for the game of life. And you're right, adversity doesn't stop on game day, practice day. It's your entire time you're on this earth. And those are the type of things that's again the part of the why. Like, this is why I do everything. This is why I work so hard. I'm preparing myself to handle everything, every curveball life throws at me. Because once I put my bat bag in the garage, I'm still going to get curveballs thrown at me every day.
Yeah.
Next question. I mean, this is great. I have some things I want to ask in our time. One of my pet peeves in high school is when I talk to players, and the more sports they play, the better, or musicals or anything. Like if they're missing off-season workouts because they're playing another sport, or they're in the play, or they're playing an instrument, whatever. The ones that tell me they're not going to play anymore because they're just going to focus, they have to get stronger and play their one sport. That bothers me, because I feel like you get better in a sport by playing other sports. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you're trying to set me up here, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Putting it
So
on
when you
for you.
exactly. So when you get to the college level, I think you should pick a sport.
Yes.
I just it is a year round. I mean, we at the college level, we play year round. We start fall ball the first week school starts. We play 16 scrimmages in the fall. We're practicing through the middle of October, end of October, until it's too cold to go outside anymore. And we start right up again in January when school starts, and we play the entire second semester. So softball at the college level is a full-time job, a full-time commitment, as I should say. But in high school, I mean, I don't, it's different than when I was in high school. We didn't have all these travel opportunities and all these AAU things. And, we actually had an end date to our sports. We knew what day soccer was over, and I knew what day basketball started, and I knew what day basketball was over, and I knew what day softball started. It's not that way anymore. But, I think the biggest thing to me is, you do something too long, I don't care what it is, you're going to get burned out. You're going to burned out, and you're using those same muscles over and over. Obviously, I use different muscles in basketball and soccer than I did in softball. And let me go train those other muscles. Let me give my softball muscles, my arm, a break for a little while here. Let me experience a different coach. Let me experience a different sport in a different setting, and play with different athletes. And I just think that, that's where when you're young, you're 12, 13, 14, you're in high school, train those other parts of your body. Take a break. Give yourself switch it up, so you're not getting burned out and you're seeing different things. And I just think it makes you a more well-rounded. If you're at high school and you're on the state championship softball team, and that's all and then you get to college and your team loses, do you know how to lose? Do you know how to face adversity? Go play on the volleyball team at your school, or whatever sport it is that's not so good, and see what it's like to be on a team that doesn't win all the time. And it makes you appreciate your situation. So I think it diversifies your portfolio in so many different directions, that I think it's a growth opportunity for a lot of different reasons. Play it all when you can.
And I think burnout primarily comes from the fact you feel you're missing out on other things you haven't tried, and it's a lack of perspective. So if you can do multiple things, then literally, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like, you should do enough so when softball season comes around in high school, you're fired up and ready to go. And I can tell you, Stacy, in the 2 years I've since taken and coached high school softball again, not one of my multi-sport athletes that might miss the first couple of days of tryouts and practice because they're finishing their season have been the reason we haven't won a state title.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, they jump right in full form and are ready to go. Like, that's not an issue.
Exactly.
But it comes down to, because it's not us, that the athletes are prepared. I mean, that's just competition. There's nothing I can simulate by them not playing the other sports. That's why I asked you that.
Exactly. And if you want to play softball in college and that's what you want to focus on, you can still play basketball and have that bow net in your garage, and you can still for 25 minutes, 3 days a week, go down in the basement and take some hacks and stay sharp in softball and work on some things and do a couple drills. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to train every single day. I think it's, in my opinion, it's too much.
No, I agree. And I think there's beauty in just competing too, because if you're in the off season for, half of the year and just hitting in the cage by yourself or with a few teammates, like I think there's some value missed in not being in some sort of competition or game, regardless of what sport it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, pivoting a little bit to, I know, something we want to talk about is circling back to the game of life portion. So I want to talk about athletes in high school, right, looking for their right fit in college. So when that time comes around, they got a lot of eyes on them and they're trying to decide where to go. I'm going to pass it over to you at this point because I know it's something we're passionate about, but how do they find their right fit? What does that look like to you?
I think student athletes need to realize that the right fit is the situation that they're going to have to experience and live in and be okay with. It's not the right fit because everybody else on my high school team went to a scholarship school. It's not the right fit because my parents both played D1 athletics, so I have to play D1 athletics. It is your fit is where you're going to be happy. It's you. You live your college experience. You are in that every day, and you have to be happy and you have to be okay with what you're doing. And I think that sometimes I'm glad you mentioned that's what I'm passionate about, because I don't think sometimes we encourage student athletes to go where they want to be happy and where they're going to be happy, instead of saying, no, we've got to post this on social media and we've got to tell everybody you're going here and getting a scholarship, because it's so much, that experience is so much bigger. I mean, how many people do we see that I'm going to go D1, I'm going to go D1, and then they get there and then they don't do it. They stop after their freshman year because they're unhappy about playing time. Or, instead of going to a different level or someplace where they're going to get what they desire. Because that's what your fit is meeting your desires. Do I want to be in a good team? Or do I not care if I win? Do I want to get playing time, or do I just want to be part of this awesome experience? One of the coolest stories, and I don't know if anybody ever does listen to this besides the three of us, and of course, Paul, your wife, so she can make fun of me.
She does.
But Amanda Poppleton from Elmira Free Academy played for me. Oh my goodness, back in 2000, 2001, maybe. If Amanda hears this, I hope I didn't make you older than you are. Amanda Poppleton went to EFA, came and played for me at Corning. And then she transferred to the university. She was going to the University of Tennessee after she graduated from Corning. And we sat in my office and I said, Amanda, are you going to try out? She's like, oh my God, coach, there's no way. I said, happy, go do it. I go, when you get to school, go knock on the weekly's door and say, when are open tryouts? Could I please have an opportunity? I go, you pitched. No, you're not pitching for Tennessee. We all know this. You're not pitching for Tennessee. But you know what? A student on their campus that wants to come and throw front toss or throw BP at practice, I said, you'd be perfect for that. And I said, you know what? What's the wildest thing? They make you part of the team. I go, you're gonna have the best seat in the house at the softball cathedrals of the world. Yeah. You're going to Bama. You're going to Oklahoma. Like you might go to the College World Series. We might see you on TV. Yeah, you might be carrying all the buckets, but I'm going to be like, there's my girl.
Yeah.
And so
with a uniform on.
Really? Yeah. I said, she goes, Coach, do you really think so? And I said, what are they going to tell you? No, who cares? You know how big that campus is and all the people they talk to? They could laugh in your face, but they're never going to remember you if they see you in the cafeteria in 2 weeks. No. So Amanda went, and she went to Tennessee, and she went and approached the weeklies, and they let her try out, and she actually made the team. They kept her as a walk-on. And I remember all of a sudden, this is a long time ago, so it was an email she sent me. You didn't snap each other pictures. And she sent me a picture of her in her uniform, the pinstripe with the voles across it. And like, I almost cried. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So it was a big deal. She was the first player from the state of New York to ever play for the University of Tennessee softball team. So she played She pinch ran once and she scored. So she's in the record books. She's got a stat. And then she tells me at the end of the season, she goes, I'm done. That was it. That was like the pinnacle. She's a nutrition major. She now works at University of Alabama as their head sports nutritionalist. And so she's made a career in athletics. But I still attribute that to she went and played Tennessee softball. She put that on her resume. And she's like, I'm done. I experienced it. I know I'm not playing for them, but they were so nice to me. They were great. This was the best experience. Thank you for pushing me to do this. And so, we joked about it for a long time. A couple of years later, I'm at Cherry Hill, New Jersey at a softball clinic, at a softball coaches clinic, and the weeklies were there. And so I was like, I'm gonna take my shot. I made Patsy take her shot. So I walk over and I got my Red Baron shirt on or whatever. And I'm like, hey, it's very nice to meet you folks. And I introduced myself. And Ralph looks at me and goes, you were Amanda Poppleton's coach. She went to Corning. And I'm like, yep.
Yep, that's me.
The weeklies continued to tell me how much they loved Amanda.
Yep.
And they were so glad that they kept her because she was the first one to practice. She carried the equipment and set everything up. She was the last one to leave practice, and she would clean up the dugout and do all the right things. And they said, Stacy, her biggest contribution, she didn't show up in the stat lines, and she might not have been on, TV, but her presence in the dugout enabled us to remind our scholarship players that you've got a kid working harder than you that's not getting a darn thing for this.
Yeah.
And so it'll never show up in the stat line, and she'll never get that outward credit for it. But when the weekly said that to me, you're talking about a big time Division I program. Yeah. And they say that she was valuable and pushed that team and made them better because she was the constant reminder. And at times they would use that. If Amanda's doing it, why the hell wouldn't you be doing it first? You're getting paid to be here. And so, that's just one of the coolest stories that I've ever experienced in my coaching.
That's incredible.
Little known fact.
I was gonna say that makes me emotional too, just because it's like that's gonna serve her well in life and the people that she touched. Because just by doing the right things, she left a place better than she found it. And to me, that is what success is. By being the person that you are, you come into a situation and you leave it better off than you found it. So I think that's really cool.
It makes my hair stand up literally, because when I talk about the yeah.
All three of them.
Look at my hat's up to here now. But that's the process. Like, okay, I could work harder than anybody on the planet, and I'm never going to play in the NBA or college. Well, I'm also 52 now. So, but the fact is that you just want to be part of something that's greater than you. And I think that's what any team really should be.
And that's,
if you find someone that can do that and is good, that's a superpower. But I'd almost rather take the kids that want that aren't even as talented, because you could build a team around those people. Maybe not at Tennessee, but I mean at 50% of the other D1 schools, if you had all players playing like that, you'd be super successful.
Well, and that's what led into the story was finding your fit. Amanda found her fit on both ends. Amanda wanted to play softball. She stayed local. She played at Corning, had a great career at Corning. And then when it was time to look for a transfer school, academics and her major was the most important. It was more important than softball. So she chose Tennessee, not because of softball, because of academics. Mm-hmm. And then when she decided to play softball, she found her fit on the team because she just wanted to be part of it. Perfect. Now that role doesn't work. Going in as a walk-on and running one time does not work for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
There's not many kids I would have said, that's a good fit for you. You should go talk to them and try out. But knowing the type of person that Amanda was, that was her fit. And there was no, I'm embarrassed because I'm not playing, or why did I come here? She found her fit, and it was academic, and then just being some part of something that was bigger than her. That's all she wanted. She didn't want glory. She didn't want starting position. She just wanted to be part of something that was pretty cool. And I just think that sometimes we chase those labels of Division I, Division II, Division III, or junior college, and we don't say, hey, over here, I could get some more playing time and get better. Instead of going over here where you know darn well you don't like not playing. And then when you end up not playing, you're miserable. Or you're spending a lot of money going someplace that you're going to end up miserable. Find the fit, man. Find the fit.
I think too, what you're saying, I couldn't agree with more. It just comes down to being honest with yourself too. And it's hard to do when you're young, but I feel like at that age you get these blinders on of I know what I want. Like this is what I feel. Okay, but if you put yourself in the situation you're going to be in a year, are you setting yourself up to be happy based on honest answers that you're giving yourself? Right? Like for me, I truly just wanted to be a part of something. Like not playing my first year didn't scare me because I just wanted the opportunity to be on a team like that. And that is a personal choice that some of my friends on my team did not feel the same way. And both are okay. Like not one thought is right or wrong, but one is right or wrong for me
Yep.
and one is right or wrong for the person next to me too. So I think it just comes down to saying, what will my future self actually need to be happy? Like, don't put yourself in a place where you're setting yourself up to be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really hard when you're 16 and 17 years old. And fortunately, I had people I was surrounded by who helped me answer those questions. But I think it's hard too, when you're trying to be honest, but you have someone in your corner saying, "Oh, you need to go do one. You need to go do this." That makes it extra hard too. So
Allie,
yeah,
that's the perfect part is you had the people around you to support you being honest to yourself.
yeah,
And sometimes I think that young people do know what they want or they are being honest with themselves, but there's that pressure that I'm letting my travel organization down because everybody in my travel organization goes to big schools.
yeah,
Or I'm letting my high school coach down because they've worked so hard and made so many connections and tried to help me get to this big school. I feel like I'm obligated to go there. And or my parents are so excited that I've got these opportunities that they didn't have. And it's not that these people I'm mentioning are doing anything wrong or intentional.
no,
It's that unintentional pressure that I think sometimes young people are given that by just sitting down and saying, you know what, whatever decision you make, I'm going to support you. You need to
yeah,
be happy. And I just wish that more people would say that
yeah,
to these young people.
There's such a focus on getting to the starting line, which seems to be college. And then when you get there, if you're not solid with your foundations and your support and you're being honest with yourself, there's never a finish line. It just never ends well.
And listen, I fell victim to this too. Love my family, love my family. But they kind of did the same thing to me in the story I told in the beginning to bring this full circle when I was going to quit my full-time job and go to Corning Community College because I wanted to be happy. And they're like, what are you crazy? You're leaving benefits and retirement?
yeah,
And you know what? They weren't intentionally trying to bully me into staying in that role. They were trying to get me to see that, Stacy, you're walking away from things that could hurt you later on down the road. They were looking out for my best interest and trying to bring the other side. But that too is unintentional pressure that, oh, am I letting my family down? Oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out? And I just think that we do that without thinking about what we're saying to people.
yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, right? Like you're the one who ultimately has to live with that decision for years to come. So your voice should be the loudest in all the noise that's coming around you. And sometimes your voice seems really quiet and everybody else's seems really loud. So yours is almost like a whisper, you know? So I think you just have to try to almost like turn your internal volume up a little bit and turn everyone else's down. I think some people are on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? Where they're people that love them are trying to give them advice and they're like, no, 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 no. That's not good either. I think it's important to listen to outside, but listen to yourself a little bit more.
Well, and we this is a whole nother podcast, but we all know that student athlete mental health is a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's let's not set people up to fail. Let them choose where they're going to be happy because there's going to be so many other pressures and anxieties and expectations and disappointments along the way, no matter where anybody goes to school, with the pressure of competition, practice, balancing social life, academic demands, that difficult professor who won't accept anything more than, 5 minutes before it's due. They're going to have things, stressors, and, at least let them start in a place where they're like, I think I'm going to really like it here. And I'm going to be okay. Because there's 10 days in, they might be like, oh my gosh, I'm going home. This is too much and I'm stressed out. And then we need to support them. But it all starts with that. That's part of it, is life, and being a college student, let alone a college student athlete, is hard enough. Make sure that the students are happy.
I want to have you back for that, because that's a big, Allie and I don't want to say love the topic, but we think that's an important topic, mental health, because I think a lot of it gets band-aided when you're younger. And then the dam breaks when you're in college and alone, or in the workforce when you get older, like, because there's nothing stopping it. There's no more band-aids left. So that's another important issue. Now we have a reason to bring you back. It was either you or Al.
I don't know about that. And
either you or Al.
Back on. Yeah. You can, again, like you said, a whole podcast, but that's one of my responsibilities at the colleges, our mental health support services and our counseling services for our students. And it's really, for me as a coach, that's really bridged the two parts of my professional life together and made me more aware of what to look at for my student athletes. And I just took a certification course last weekend on mental performance mastery. And so I'm always trying to learn more and more about these ways to train our mind and to look at the positives versus the negative and set ourselves up with our mindset for a better outcome. And it's not what happens to us, it's how we react to what happens to us, because it's again, life is hard. Life is hard, man.
Yeah. And I mean, going back, you talked about recruiting good people. That is another reason why that's super important. If someone's struggling, knowing that people on your team are going to make the right choices and help them and create an environment that's going to, help them thrive, that's huge. That's so huge.
Or multiply their stressors or make them worse.
Yeah. Exactly. There's two ends.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it does go both ways.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
Well, Stacy, this was fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you realize how smart you are.
No, but we could do a podcast and I could tell you. No,
I'm just no.
I've been called a lot of things, but smart's never been one of them.
No, listen. When you do what you do, when you're a coach, and you have principles and you stick to your guns and do it your way, there's a saying that helps me get through things, that I don't mind being the villain in your story. Just tell everybody what chapter you created me, because like, I'm going to keep being me. I'm not changing, and we're going to have honest conversations. And if that's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. And that's happened in your career. Absolutely. I mean, that's just what happened. But when you look back at what you've done, and I know you've got 20, 30 years left coaching, right?
As long as I make the bus accessible for my wheelchair in a couple more years. Yeah, I mean,
stop.
These knees are getting old.
It's judged by, if I stop 9 out of 10 people on the street that know Stacy Johnson from Corning Community College, you're going to get a common theme, a good theme, and that's you've left the place better. Well, you're still there. I'm acting like talking about your obituary, right? You're leaving the place better than when you got there, and that's the mark of a successful person.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. It was fun.
I think next time Allie comes home, we got to do this live somewhere.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a couple places in mind.
I got a few ideas.
Yeah.
All right,
it's not your basement, Coach Richmond. It's not your basement.
Yeah.
No. Well, thanks again. And like I said, you do a fabulous job in the area, and we're so glad. I never name the podcast till it's over with, and I as always with my notes, I've got the perfect name, so I'm not going to tell you.
I can't wait for this one.
Yeah. It's called Paul's Friends.
No.
Love it. No, Paul, I appreciate all you do for the community, and not only in coaching, but what you do with your New Visions. My niece was fortunate enough to be part of that program. You do some pretty cool stuff for our community. And Allie, it's been fun watching you grow up. And I can't believe that little obnoxious girl I talked about earlier just wanted to pick her sister, kick her, and run away. I mean, you got your act together, young lady. I know you had some pretty good upbringing, and we're taught some pretty good morals and ethics and standards. But you're wise way beyond your years, young lady.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Watching you grow up and watch your journey.
Thank
I
you.
watched. I checked on you once in a while. Checked in.
Yeah.
I'd log into some live streams and watch you. So
Oh, that's awesome.
congrats. It's always nice to see local girls do great things. So
Yes.
proud of you.
Well,
Kid.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Stacy.
Alrighty.
Until next time.
Sounds like a
All
plan.
right.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Bye.